Welcome to our long overdue final episode of Eric Goldberg's vast animation career. Sit back, relax, and let's learn more together. Before we start, don't forget to check out our Discord, our coffee page, and like, subscribe, comment, hit the bell, all the things. It really helps us out. Eric was a natural, self-taught animator trained under the great Richard Williams. Eventually, Eric found himself animating the genie at Disney. He would go on to direct Pocahontas and animate Phil and Hercules. It would seem Eric is just a fan of funny little dudes. When Fantasia 2000 came along, Eric was looking to stretch his wings and get experimental.
For the first time, I got to work with Susan as an art director, which was wonderful. The idea was suggested by the great Joe Grant, a great friend of Bernie Mattinson's and of ours as well. And he came up with this nutball concept of flamingos and yo-yos. Susan did this great watercolor technique. So every flamingo you see here is hand watercolored. We were both very good friends with Joe Grant, and Joe Grant is the guy who really started Carnival of the Animals. It was his idea, and and for us to take it to the next stage was really great, and we wanted to make sure Joe liked it. And Rhapsody in Blue, well, we both love New York. We met in New York. Susan was working at Xander's Animation Parlor, and I was working at Richard Williams and going back to visit some of my friends in New York, and we clicked. Nancy Beeman introduced the two of us. She was working at Xander's at the time, and so was Susan. And, you know, that's when we first met each other. And so we always have these warm fuzzies about New York. And if nothing else, Rhapsody in Blue is a love letter to New York. You know?
And a love letter to Al Hirschfeld, too, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Actually, it's interesting. The first piece of art that Susan and I bought together was a Hirschfeld print. Don't know why. It's just the first piece of art we bought together was a little shop in Greenwich Village, and it was kind of a brush painting Hirschfeld of a geisha. And it was so beautiful. And you know, so Hirschfeld's always been a huge, huge part of our lives. And,
that's really neat.
You know.
Al Hirschfeld has always been a big influence on Eric, going way back to high school.
I was art editor of the yearbook for our senior year, and our art advisor, Judy Leopold, turned me on to the little details in Hirschfeld that I didn't know. So, for example, finding the Ninas. You know, she's the first person who told me about that, and that there's a number at the signature. So my grandparents used to live in Brooklyn, in New York.
Sure.
And we would go up from New Jersey, up the New Jersey Turnpike to see them like once a month. And so my mom would be in the front seat doing the New York Times Sunday crossword, and Elliot, my brother, and I would be in the back seat looking for all the Ninas in the arts and leisure section.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Hirschfeld's influence can be seen extensively on the genie in Aladdin. Eric eventually asked him to come to the premiere of the movie, but Hirschfeld declined, saying he had too many deadlines coming up. Life is just one big rat race, it seems.
Flash forward to that Museum of Modern Art premiere, and I'm standing there with Susan. My brother Elliot had come up from New Jersey in front of the Ziegfeld Theater, and Peter Schneider, who's then president of Feature Animation, walks by and goes, "Oh, by the way, you're Alan Dolly, Hirschfeld's Minders tonight." So up pulls the limo, out come Alan Dolly, and I'm like sweating bullets. I'm, oh my God, here they are. I hope he likes it. I hope he likes it. I hope he doesn't sue me. I hope he likes it. Anyway, lights come up after the show, and he was so gracious, and he liked it so much, and he saw his influence. So the part two of the story was when we suggested doing Rhapsody in Blue in Hirschfeld style, and there were certain executives at the studio saying, well, we don't really need Hirschfeld, you know, to be involved in this. You can do Hirschfeld. And I said, this time we pay him And so he was our official artistic consultant on Rhapsody in Blue.
Nice.
And we showed him all the model sheets, and he gave us notes, and it was wonderful.
Did he do
drawings?
Yeah, did he do
He did,
drawings?
yeah.
Oh, he did.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
I bet I knew who has those.
Actually, he has those. Technically
he
speaking, for legal reasons, and, you know, if I took back an original Hirschfeld with me to Burbank, it would cost the studio a buttload of money. So what he would have to do is the draw over, and then dutifully, I would draw on a separate piece of paper my version of his draw over and take that back to Burbank with me.
Interesting. Oh my god.
You couldn't even copy it or take a picture of what he did just to have?
Nope. No such thing as iPhones then, where you could snap a picture.
Eric was let go from the studio after Fantasia 2000, so he went on to serve as director of animation for Warner Brothers' 2003 film Looney Tunes Back in Action, which makes me want to celebrate the fact that we are in the Brendan Fraser Renaissance. He also provides the voices of Marvin, Tweety, Speedy, and just one line of Bugs Bunny.
Hey, thanks, Doc. Hey, here comes the boss. Here, Mr. Warner, have one on me.
No. This one's on me.
Thank you, Daffy.
Mother?
You're despicable.
Although the film was not commercially successful at the box office, it was met with relatively positive reviews from film critics, and Goldberg was nominated for an Annie Award for Outstanding Directing in an Animated Feature Production for his animation direction. In 2006, he animated the title sequence of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer's 2006 remake of The Pink Panther with Bob Kurtz of Kurtz and Friends. Shortly after, Goldberg returned to Disney.
There's no place like home.
Where he directed 4 minutes of animation for the best Epcot attraction. No. Really? Wait. There it is. He also contributed to the 2007 animated short How to Hook Up Your Home Theater, which starred Goofy.
The heavenly journey begins with a few key components. The DVD, the CD, the LD, the DVR, the VCR, audio receiver, AV cables, TV tables, satellite dish with satellite, the Blu-ray, the Green-Ray, the Who-Ray, the Hi-Fi IY, HDMI, the heebie-jeebies, and E equals MC squared. Oh, and don't forget the batteries. They're not included.
Now comfortably back at Disney, Eric was thrown back into animating another full-length animated movie, The Princess and the Frog, for which he animated the lively and cowardly alligator, Louie. Again, it would seem Eric is just a fan of funny little dudes.
Originally, Lewis had horn-rimmed glasses. He was an accountant who wanted to play the trumpet, and Dr. Facilier turned him into the world's greatest trumpet player, but an alligator at the same time. So this first test reflects that, but then he got more refined and more alligator-like with the other animation that followed. So here we go.
Listen here. That bug right there, that bug about scared me half to death. Oh, I'm gonna puke. Sorry. Germs. Yeah.
1, 2.
I got the world on a string, sitting on a rainbow. Got a string on my mango.
Please, don't hurt me. I'm fragile. I bruise like a banana. Y'all sure this is a right blind voodoo lady who lives in a boat in a tree in the bayou?
Pretty sure.
I've never animated anybody playing the trumpet before. I've never animated an alligator before, and I got schooled by my peers. You know, we kind of co-designed the film together in the same way we did with Aladdin, and everybody was saying, my gator is too cliched. He's too, cartoony. And they were right. I had to go back to gator school and actually study a gator's anatomy and his skeletal structure and how a gator is put together, and then caricature it. You know, so gators have notably small arms and legs. So that's the caricatures. They're really tiny arms and legs, you know, on a character like Louis. One thing I did that a lot of people would do is I combined both his chin and his neck in my first design. So it's just this blob of fat. But a gator actually has a separate chin and then this big bull neck around it, you know. I hinged his mouth under his eyes like a human. And if you look at a gator, they're hinged way behind the eyes, you know? And it's like, and I did that, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, he became a gator. And then there's the contrasts in personality to play with, which is that he's huge and threatening and he's a wuss, you know? And it's fun playing those two things off of one another. And then there's the trumpet playing, not the least of which was aided and abetted by Russ Edmonds, who was also animating on the film at the time and plays the trumpet.
Does he? I didn't know that.
I didn't know
So every time... You know, and I had 3 people on my unit. I had myself, Bert Klein, and Hyun Min Lee as the Louis animators. And anytime we had a scene where Louis had to play the trumpet, we'd bring in Russ, and he would show us exactly which fingers hit which valves for which notes, and we would animate that. And likewise, he'd tell us about the body language of playing the trumpet. So if you're hitting a high note, chances are you would lean backwards when you're hitting a high note. All that kind of stuff.
That's great.
You don't know offhand. Plus, you know, I'd look on YouTube at Dizzy Gillespie and his cheeks would be puffing out when he's playing the trumpet.
Yeah,
you know,
crazy.
and you do all sorts of things to do your research and really make this character unique.
Eric also directed Tiana's fantasy sequence, which was inspired by Aaron Douglas of the Harlem Renaissance. A hop, skip, and a jump from there, Eric moved on to Disney's last full-length and drawn film, Winnie the Pooh, in 2011, for which he animated Rabbit.
One thing that was fun about Rabbit was that even though, you know, that's our general Rabbit look, there were opportunities for him to break out of this, and to a certain extent, I'll credit John Lasseter with that. You know, as much as all of us love the original films, he said, listen, you guys have the license to make this, you know, your set of Pooh characters. You know, it's your generation's version of these characters. So we have to serve 2 masters. Certainly we have to make the characters recognizable and behave the same way that they would, but we push things for comedy and put more of ourselves into the characters, which we were encouraged to do. So, for example, when Rabbit was really, really cheesed off, I would give him an expression that was arrived at by one of our famous presidents. And also, he was a character who was great to show terrific frustration on. I think that's really when Rabbit's at his funniest. So, you know, aside from this or this, you know, we can also have him doing... One of my source inspirations for that was John Cleese's performance as Basil Fawlty in Fawlty Towers, you know, which is really a great study in frustration humor. I mean, he was just great. But you can't have Rabbit do that all the time. You have to build up to it in the same way that Basil Fawlty would build up to it over the course of a particular story. But it was nice to have that kind of range with him. And in the original films, they did do weird things where they would put a wild take on Rabbit or a disheveled expression on him, and they would break out of this themselves. So, you know, just for the purposes of humor, I think, you know, we pushed it a little bit further than it might have gone, but he still is rabbit, you know. We're just taking it, that just little edge further.
Like Mark Henn, who you can learn more about here, Eric has been put into more of an animation consultant/director position at the studio. He was the final line animator on Paperman, a consultant on Wreck-It Ralph, and the supervisor for the hand-drawn portion of Get a Horse. He also animated on the Disney Plus exclusive series of shorts, Goofy How to Stay at Home, for which he animated and directed How to Wear a Mask.
And now you're ready to sally forth into our wonderful world safely, confident that you are well protected to do your errands.
He is very, very physical. And he is very gangly and loose.
Wow!
And so for animators, that is kind of a great opportunity. I think Goofy was the perfect choice. He goes through a lot of the same things that all of us go through, but he always gets through it with a smile and with an enjoyment at his own kind of goofy ingenuity at solving a problem.
Most recently, he directed and animated an Oswald the Lucky Rabbit short released in December of 2022. Eric Goldberg still works as a consultant at the studio and is in a very good position to influence upcoming Disney projects. His style is amazing, and his eye for cartoon humor is very unique. He is one of the last animators representing the old Warner Brothers style out there, and we're very glad he's putting that experience to use improving Disney animation and keeping the style alive. And for that, we thank him. Thank you to these people for supporting us on Patreon and Ko-fi. And if you want to make sure this channel sticks around, you can check out our Ko-fi link in the description. Every bit helps. Thank you for watching this episode of Discographies. Click the thumbs up button below if you liked it. And if you want to be notified when the next episode comes out, consider subscribing and hitting the bell. Comment below with characters you would like to see us cover. Further reading and references are linked below. We hope to see you in another Discography.